this is Dr. Jeremiah Stevens. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to do our version of Dr. Simeon's HCG program. He designed this program in the 1950s, and we've been using it in our office since about 2007. And so this video, we're going to talk about how we specifically do the program. We call it the Body Revive program because we've seen it restore people back to significant levels of health after their body has gotten a little bit out of balance. And so this is to reestablish some things. So we use a program that's very similar to what he designed in the 1950s. We do have a couple deviations from what he originally did, so I will talk about those as we go along. But this video should give you almost all the information you need to get started. There will be a separate video for how you give yourself the shot and mix up the medicine, so watch that. And then we'll have a video for troubleshooting, problems you may encounter, and how to overcome those, although you always have access to us if you're doing the program. And then we'll have another video on what we call phase 3 and 4, which is how you transition when you're done and how we can make sure that you're not going to regain this weight right back, how to reestablish your new set points and really stay at where your new point is. So this is that's, I think, just as crucially important. This video we're mostly going to talk about phases 1 and 2, which I'll talk about that in just a second. So before we get into the real program, quick disclaimer here. I want you to read through these here. So this is basically stating that HCG is not approved by the FDA for weight loss purposes, although we can use medications off-label, and that's what we're doing here. HCG is designed, the on-label usage for a HCG injectable is for either fertility purposes or for boosting testosterone. So what we're doing is a little bit off-label, but this program has generally been done for a lot of years, and people have seen decent effectiveness and safety, although there is no specific approval for this, just to be aware of. What we found, there is some side effects potentially with HCG, but with these listed side effects, and I'd like you to read through them here on this second slide, it's things about headaches, irritability, things like that. HCG in fertility purposes is used in much larger doses than we're using it. A woman who's pregnant is urinating over 1 million units of HCG every day out. And these fertility purposes are using between 5,000 and 10,000 units in a single injection to try to trigger a woman to ovulate. What we're doing in our protocol, and based on Dr. Simeon's work, is between 125 and 200 units a day. So while it is possible you could end up with some of these side effects, it's extremely rare at those doses, and we've never really seen these pop up. But be aware, it is a possibility. And lastly, with any weight loss program, there is no guarantees. What I will say is everyone who's stuck to the program that we've had go through it has done really well. We've had a few people not able to finish the protocol for different purposes, and obviously they you're not going to lose weight if you're not following it. But if you're following the protocol, we've seen just a remarkable level of success with people doing this program. So I'm excited for you to get started and to help you work toward the weight goals you have, and more importantly, to just help you feel better again, get your energy back, and improve all these biochemical markers like blood sugar, cholesterol, blood pressure that we see across the board when people lose weight. These things start to self-correct, and that's a really big life change as well. So let's jump into the actual workings of this protocol. So for our language purposes, we call that there's 4 phases to the protocol. So Dr. Simeon's, when he wrote his book, which is called Pounds and Inches, which you can find out there, he basically describes phases 2, 3, and 4. He didn't use the term phases, or he didn't talk about phase 1 at all. This was in the 1950s, and a lot of modern protocols have sort of built on what he started. And so phase 1 is sort of an optional pre-round detox or cleanse. Generally, when people are starting this protocol, you're not going to have the medicine in your hand for 5 to 7 days. So we often, because we have to get shipped from a pharmacy, what we often will encourage people to do is to use this time to take advantage and do some of these pre-round cleanses, detox stuff. Our modern world, I think, is significantly more toxic than what was going on in the 1950s, unfortunately. So I think our systems of elimination, our digestive tract, our liver, our kidneys, our skin, our lungs are all a little more taxed than they used to be. And I think if we can do some things to get them ready to go, they can be more effective at processing through stuff that we start burning a lot of fat tissue. They can be more primed to go. So phase 1 is this optional. You don't have to do it, but it's a pre-round detox or cleanse. And I think what I've seen is that people who do it often do better and have better success on the program. Phase 2 then is when you start taking the injections of the HCG and pairing it with the calorie restricted diet. And so that's mostly what we're going to talk about today, how to do that approach. Phase 3 then, and phase 4, like I mentioned, is how you stabilize your weight at this new set point. Phase 3 goes for 3 weeks, and it's basically no sugar, no starch. But at that point, you're adding foods back in, so it's a lot easier than what it sounds. Phase 4 then is gradually putting starches and carbs, and in phases 3 and 4, we're really watching the weight tightly. We want to stay in a 2-pound window up and down from your final finishing weight, so we don't regain, but we also really don't want you to lose at that point, because often what we find, if you lose at that point, you're losing muscle mass, and we want to rebuild muscle mass at that point and lose connective tissue. And so phase 3 and 4 is really about reestablishing back to good healthy habits until you can do another round, or until once you get your goal weight, to help really lock that in so you can learn to stay at this new point. So that's kind of the language we use. So if you hear us say one of these phases, this is what we're talking about. So phase 1, just briefly, I want to go through this. Kind of what we find, since you have a week often before you can get started, some of the things I like people to do in this first week: drink lots of water, at least a half a gallon a day. That's something that goes good through the entire protocol. I think it's probably good for almost everybody. So to keep yourself well hydrated, it seems to help everything. Eat lots of whole fruits and vegetables. Put as much nutrition in your body as possible. We're going to be transitioning to like a modified fast. So as much nutrition as you can put in your body before and after is really helpful. Increasing fiber in your diet. You want to get your digestive tract used to moving real regularly. So we'd like you having a bowel movement at least once a day, preferably probably twice a day. Just get your system moving regularly. Some supplements that often can be helpful. The first one is for this, would be some kind of fiber. We use this Fiber Plus formula from our line that we've had great success with getting people to move regular. You want to make sure to take it with lots of water. And these other supplements I think are just nutritional supporting things to help build your body up. So omega-3s, fish oils, I think are really important right before and after. We're going on this calorie restricted, but also a fat restrictive diet for the next 6 weeks on this program. So you're not going to be able to put a lot of good fats in, and people do complain about dry skin and symptoms of dryness. So as much as you can load your body up with these healthy omega-3 beneficial fats, I think is really good for you. So I strongly encourage you to take some omega-3. 3 to 4 capsules a day is usually what I recommend. If you're going to do a liquid, I like about a teaspoon of liquid a day. So just something to put on board. Greens, I really love greens. We have this powder, supreme greens, or these capsules. You could also find something like spirulina, wheatgrass, chlorella. These things are just full of micronutrients, and again, on this modified fast coming up, you're kind of limited in what you can do. So I think putting these on is really helpful. This is great before and after rounds. We can't do it during the round because it can throw off sort of the metabolic spot that we're at. Lastly, I think something to help kind of get your body going ready is like detox teas. You can find them at the health food stores or even the grocery stores around here have them. Things like yogi teas or traditional medicinals make a really good detox tea. We have a supplement, a powdered capsule supplement called liver detox capsules that can get your liver moving more effectively too. Just again, all these things can be helpful to get your body ready to go. Some other things I think that can be really helpful: colon hydrotherapy, doing colonics before. Again, getting your system cleaned out, ready to go. There's some protocols that have people do 15 colonics in 30 days before they even take their first shot. I don't necessarily mandate that by any stretch, but I do think it would be very helpful to do that for a lot of people. But also just to, these a few times I think before a round can be really helpful. So if you have access or know a place you can go and get a colonic, we've got some places we can recommend locally that are great, and I think that would be something good to put on board and kind of just get your system ready to go. Lastly, some of these other things like massage, sauna, sweating, exercise, Epsom salt baths, all can be just sort of getting your system, doing a cleanse protocol to get your body ready to go. So I encourage all these things. If you have any specific questions, talk to us, talk to your doctor, and we'll come up with a strategy that works best for you. So when you're ready to get started, here's a few things you're going to need to have around. And this is really once we go transition into phase 2. So you're going to need a bathroom digital scale. We need to weigh yourself every day. Each morning, first thing in the morning is when we do the weight. That's the only weight we really track during the day, is just that first morning one, because it will fluctuate as the day goes on. You are going to need to get a food scale, one that will weigh out your protein portions, because we need to measure those out every day. So you can get a nice digital one, but an analog little dial one works just as well. So either one will work. Digital's nicer, but whatever you can have access to. You can find them at Bed Bath & Beyond is often where I recommend people go, but you can find them at Target, Walmart, places like that. Some kind of a grill is very helpful. George Foreman's are nice because you can use them inside. If it's a nice season, you can grill outside. I think it just helps putting some flavor into your food without adding extra fat or calories, so that's helpful to have around. Steamers are are handy too to cook your vegetables, but again, not required. You can steam with a pot of water as well. You are going to need to pick up two things at a drugstore for the program. You're going to pick up a red Sharps container. They sell them for a couple of dollars. Just a place to dispose of your needles safely. It depends where you're located. A lot of times you can take them to your local dump and throw them away for free. Sometimes you have to pay a small disposal fee for those. But I think it's a good idea. It's really crucial so no one gets injured on your used needles here. And you're also going to need to pick up some alcohol swabs. They're a couple dollars again at the drugstore. You want to wipe the top of the bottle every time before you mix up a medicine and drop a syringe. And then you want to wipe your skin before you give yourself an injection just to prevent just any germs from getting in. So those are two things you are going to need to pick up. As far as the HCG itself, we will mail that to you from the pharmacy directly. Generally what we send is 2 bottles that have powdered dried medicine. Each bottle will last about 3 weeks. When you get it, you need to mix up the medicine, and we'll have a separate video where it shows how to do this process. So you're gonna have to add water from one bottle will have water, one bottle will have the medicine, and you'll have 2 kits of those. So take water from the sterile water into the syringe, into the bottle with the powdered medicine. Reconstitute it. You're gonna mix it gently, and then you're gonna draw syringes off of that. So that again lasts about 3+ weeks, and then you'll mix up the second bottle after that and gets through there. We also will send some insulin syringes and all the mixing syringes along with it, so you'll have everything you need from the pharmacy delivered there. So that will all come. It takes anywhere from 5 to 7, occasionally an extra day or 2 on that. Just be aware. And again, you can do some of these cleanse things on the meantime. So again, after you finish watching this video, you can watch our next video on how to mix up the medicine and how to give yourself an injection. There's a couple options on places you can inject. So stomach works well. You can do your upper outer thigh in here, not real far out on the tendon here, but anywhere on the top front, or you can do your upper outer hip. Here are a couple options for places you can give yourself injections. If you're having a hard time, maybe you have someone else who can give you the shot who has some medical training, at least initially. We can show you in our office if you'd like some assistance on the first couple ones. But generally most people do great with this. The first time you do it, it's going to be hard, it's going to be weird. If you like giving yourself the shots, I think you're kind of a little bit of an odd person. So just be aware, it can be a little challenging, but almost everyone who's done this program is fine with it. And it really helps people get over any needle fears or phobias you may have. So if it's an absolute total deal breaker, and we've had a couple people over the years who just say, I can't do it, no way, I'm not going to give myself a shot, it's not going to happen, how can I do the program without it? There is some sublingual preparations, they're called troches. It's like a little lozenge you put under your tongue, and that is an option we can do. We have much more experience using the injections. Dr. Simeon's, when he created the program in the 1950s, he used injectable form. But we've gotten better with sublingual technologies since then. So we've had people do it and still do really well. So it is an option out there if you didn't want to give yourself a shot. So just be aware, talk to your doctor about that. Okay, so getting into the program, once you start taking your shots, one of the first things you have to do is, for the first 3 days, is doing something called loading, or gorging is often the term people use. So this is a little weird, and this is one of the things, there's a couple things that are a little bit odd about this program. But what we've seen is that people who don't do this often won't lose as much weight in the first couple weeks and are much more hungry. So there's some real importance to this. Dr. Simeon's really stressed it in his book. He recommended 2 days, but he said up to 5. And so what we found is 3 days seems to work best for most people. What we want to get to is the point where you're tired of eating food, and that will happen usually on that 3rd day. So what you're going to do for the first 3 days, once you take your first shot, again, this doesn't start until you take your first shot, is to eat as much high-fat foods as possible for those 3 days. So eat three good-sized meals that are rich in fat, maybe a few other snacks, 4 to 6 probably meals in the day that have some fat. And here's a list of some healthier choices if you don't want to eat a bunch of junk food, like olives, avocados, coconut milk, coconut butters, coconut oils, dairy, often full-fat dairies, cheese, cream, butter, things like that. Meats, healthy meats preferably, grass-fed organic meats. Nuts and nut butters have a lot of fats. But you also do want to get some of your favorite foods out of the way too, because you're going to be on a restricted diet for a length of time too. So, hamburgers, pizza, french fries, those all have a ton of fat. So you don't need to eat a lot of sugar, so don't go sucking down lots of sodas or things like that to try to gorge. That's not what we're looking for. We're just looking for fats at this point. So again, by that 3rd day, you're probably going to start to be really done with food. You're like, it's hard to even put any more in my mouth. That's great. Your body's almost really welcoming going on a low-calorie diet at that point. So you're ready to transition to the rest of the phase 2 diet. So basically the protocol for this is you're going to each day, starting on day 4, you're going to get up, use the restroom, and then weigh yourself. That first morning weight, again, is the only weight we're tracking. Then you're going to give yourself a shot of HCG. So after that, breakfast is generally only tea or coffee with preferably no milk, cream, or sugar. If it's an absolute deal breaker, Dr. Simeon did allow like up to a tablespoon or 2 of non-fat milk in your tea or coffee if you need to cut it just a hair. But if you can get away without it, it's probably better. There is an optional protein shake that we found that often works really well with this program. It's designed by a company called Biogenesis. It's called Ultralean. It comes in either chocolate or vanilla, or they do have a strawberry banana now. It's something that a protein powder that we see work really well. We've tried other protein powders without much success, and so this one seems to work kind of as a free food up to once a day. So if you like having something in the morning, or if you want to have something around just to have a free food throughout the day one time, this is a good option, especially in the first week or 2 as you're getting adjusted to the program. I would encourage you maybe to consider getting some of it around if you feel like you're going to struggle. Otherwise, basically what you get is a protein, veggie, and a fruit twice a day. So lunch you get a protein, veggie, fruit. Dinner you get a protein, veggie, fruit. And then you can drink as much tea, water, and coffee as you want during the day. So generally we don't want any foods after 6 p.m. We'll go through just in a minute what those specific proteins and veggies and fruits you can have are. So, but you want to try to get all your foods in before 6 p.m. So after 6, really beverages become your only real option here. So, and they can be really helpful. Like lots of tea in the evening can be your friend. Carbonated waters work well anytime during the day, like Perrier, Talking Rain, LaCroix, things like that are great options to kind of take in extra water that's flavored. You can get some stevia flavored drops, or add some stevia to these things, just again to have some beverages, because after 6 we really want to cut it. So if you're having kind of long gaps, most of the weight loss is really going to happen between that 6 p.m. and probably the next, late the next morning, early afternoon when you're going to eat the next time. So one other option I do encourage people to consider is to split your fruit off from your main meal times. And again, we're going to talk about the specific fruits you can have. And so that gives you some snacks. So have a fruit around like maybe 10 in the morning, meat and veggie around noon, another fruit around 2:30, meat and veggie around 5. It seems to work better for most people not having to go so long without missing a meal. So some things to think about. Okay, so which proteins can you have? And again, you get 2 of these a day from this column here, this list here. So it's the protein portion is the thing that needs to be weighed out every day. So again, it's 100 grams raw or 84 grams cooked, because you lose water weight. So again, that's where the food scale comes in handy. You're going to want to weigh all this out at least, for the first few weeks until you get a really good idea what these portion sizes are, and then maybe you can eyeball it a little bit after that. But the easiest one to do is chicken breast, and this is what I usually encourage people to do, is to buy a bunch of chicken breast, season it up with whatever spices you want, as long as they don't have any sugars, and then cook them on a grill, let them cool down, cut them into 84-gram portions, and put them in Ziploc bags, and have that be the bulk of your meals, and have this chicken around, because if you get hungry, you want to have something you can go to quick, so you don't jump to like something you don't want to be eating. So that kind of becomes the base, and then you can break it up with some of these other proteins. So the other options you can do are crab and shrimp, any kind of whitefish, so halibut, cod, sole, tilapia, or something like that. Red meats, there's buffalo, elk, venison, yak meat is really lean, apparently. Grass-fed sirloin is okay as well, what we've seen. In Dr. Simeon's book, he said Italian beef seemed to be fine for everyone on the program, but in America, when he tried the program, everyone seemed to stall with American beef. And what my theory is that American beef was already grass feeding, or grain feeding, grain finishing, which increases the fat marbling and content in the beef. So stay away from standard commercial beef, but most grocery stores now are stocking grass-fed beefs, and sirloin tends to be about the leanest cut on the cow. So any kind of loin cut, tenderloin, sirloin, one of those, generally fine, especially if you get it grass-fed, and again at the 100-gram raw portion size. There's 2 vegetarian options. There's a cup of non-fat cottage cheese, counts as 1 protein portion. There's lots of different varieties of ways you can cook this, especially if you have a grill. That can be really helpful. And then seasonings we'll talk about in just a minute, how to make this stuff taste good. So vegetables. So you get 2 servings a day from this list here, and the serving size is a handful, which is a little bit vague, but generally you can be pretty liberal in your hand size. So I've had people you can really grab in and get a good amount of these vegetables. It seems to be, if you're going to go over on any one of your kind of servings a day, vegetables seem to be the kind of the best one to do it on. So you can eat these vegetables either raw, steamed, or sauteed. If you get some specific oil, which we'll talk about coming up, but it's called MCT oil. You can find it at health food stores, and so that's an option that can be really helpful to give you a little bit of variety. So I will highlight on this list that broccoli is not on this list, green beans is not on this list, peas are not on this list. I've had a lot of people come in and they're stalling their weight loss and we're asking what you're eating, and they're saying broccoli or they're saying peas. And I'm like, they're not on the list. I'm like, oh, they're not? So just be aware, they're not on this. Going back to the meats, the ones I've seen people eating, salmon, tuna, pork, other red meats, they come in, they're often stalling, and we're like, what are you eating? And they're saying, I'm eating salmon. And I'm like, nope, you can't do that. So again, be real careful, stick to these foods and only the foods that are listed on this list. So the easiest one to do is a salad with chicken on it. You end up eating a ton of that because it's a kind of a go-to food. Generally, I've seen people be okay mixing and matching within their handful size. So if you want to do a salad with some tomatoes and onions or something like that, that's generally not too much of a problem. I've seen some people say that you should only stick with one. I haven't seen that in practice that to be that big of a difference. But if you are stalling, maybe consider just doing a single vegetable at a time. Okay, the fruits, there's only 4 choices on this. An apple, half a grapefruit, an orange, or a handful of strawberries. And I did put a little caveat. The oranges, it seems like more now, everyone's getting these little mini oranges. They're just really convenient. And generally I say if you do that, you can have 2 of those instead of one larger orange. So again, you get this twice a day from the list. You can have it raw. There are some recipes out there where people do stuff with baked apples and stuff if you want a little variety. Some people use some stuff with frozen strawberries and blend it with some ice and stevia and things like that to make a little. So there's lots of recipes out online. Look at them. Just make sure there are some different HCG protocols out there which allow other ingredients. What we found is sometimes when people deviate, they're fine, but a lot of times when people deviate from this list, they start to stall. So just be aware if you make any deviations from these foods, it could have some consequences in your weight loss numbers. So look out there, find some recipes. There's some great books on Amazon. People get really creative within the confines of these specific foods. I've seen some people grind chicken breast and make little lettuce tacos with salsa and stuff like that. So you can get really creative. So just play around, look out there, what's going on. Okay, Dr. Simeon's allowed 2 different bread options a day. He was in Italy, so he allowed these Italian breadsticks, kind of the long crispy ones, called grissini or grissino breadsticks. He said in America the closest equivalent we had at the time was Melba toast, but nowadays you can find these breadsticks in grocery stores. However, I generally try to discourage people from using any breadsticks or Melba toast just because I see a whole lot of gluten intolerance nowadays. I think our gluten foods are a lot different than what they were in the 1950s. So just be aware, it doesn't really add a ton. It's only about 5 calories for when you're on it, so I don't think it's really needed. If you want to try it, you could see, but just be aware, I have seen it stall a few people, so I often will discourage it. So other things you can use to season and to make your foods a little more palatable. So apple cider vinegar is allowed, especially the cloudy stuff, Bragg's or Spectrum. There's a few different brands out there. I think that's a great option. I've also seen unsweetened rice wine vinegar to be fine for people, so you can have that as well. Dr. Simeon's allowed the juice of 1 lemon total per day in either food or drinks. It works nice in drinks, slicing a piece of lemon and putting it in your water or other beverage. Any spices you want, spice blends, seasoning salts. There's no salt restrictions at all on this diet, and you do want to eat quite a bit of salt. So I often have people salt their foods a little bit heavier. I've seen some people get into problems with not enough salt in their food and getting too low in sodium, because we still have these sodium needs and we're only eating a calorie restricted diet. So make sure you're eating plenty of salt. Sea salt is generally better. Just make sure if you're using any spice blends or seasoning salts, just that there's no sugars added. Usually there's not, but there are some rubs and things that will have some sugars in it. Stevia is allowed as a sweetener, so that's a good option. That can give you a lot of variety. You can sprinkle it on your fruit, like grapefruit or strawberries, if you want to make it a little sweeter. You can make a simple lemonade, if you will, with squeeze some lemon in water and add a packet of stevia to it, or a little bit of powdered or liquid drop stevia, and that has a nice option. You can put it in the fruit teas, like berry teas you can get, like berry zingers or stuff like that. Put it in the tea and then add some stevia. It kind of tastes like juice, especially if you pour it over ice. So there's a lot of options you can do with stevia. The other two things I think that seem to be fine are yellow mustard and hot sauces, as long as they don't have any sugars added, because basically they're just vinegar and spices. So these are nice, especially if you like spicy foods like Tabasco, Red Hot, Sriracha. I think has a little bit of sugar in it, so you should be cautious with that one. But most people, the hot sauces are a nice addition if you like them. So like I mentioned, you end up eating a lot of salads on this program. So salad dressings, you can do a couple here. You can use one of the vinegars, the apple cider vinegar or the rice wine vinegar, with or without lemon juice. And then with or without this last one listed here, this MCT oil, which MCT stands for a medium chain triglyceride oil. It's a fat that's derived from coconut oil, but it's a liquid at room temperature instead of a solid like coconut oil. And in general, it's not a fat our body stores very well, so your body just kind of has to get rid of it. And it seems to work really well with this program, up to 2 tablespoons a day. So that's nice to you can use it in your salad dressings, again with the vinegar, kind of make your own vinaigrette. Another simple salad dressing we found is if you take out some of the mustard, yellow mustard, thin it with some water and add a packet of stevia to that, and it kind of tastes like a honey mustard. And some people add a hot sauce to that too if you want to make it a little more spicy. Just again, gives you some varieties. There are some 0-calorie sweetener or salad dressings out there, so those are some options that people have used and had some success with. Some of them use some artificial sweeteners, which I'm not real crazy about, like NutraSweet or Splenda or something like that. So, but people have used them and people have had success. You do want to drink lots of fluid every day, at least a half a gallon of water. Tea is not necessarily required, but it really is helpful in the evening, especially because after you can't eat much after 6, so tea becomes your friend for sure. All right, last few things here, additional information. So you have to be cautious on this program with putting lotions and oils on your skin. And this is something, again, I remember I said there are some things that are a little bit odd about this program. I thought this was very odd initially, but it's not something you think about. But when you put oil or lotion on your hands, it has to go somewhere. It doesn't go away. And where it goes is into your metabolism. It goes into your body, and your body metabolizes that. So most modern day lotions have switched to using petroleum-based ingredients. So the big commercial brands like Vaseline Intensive Care, Curel, Eucerin, things mostly use petroleum. And that doesn't seem as problematic as what the old lotions were based out of plant-based oils. So what we found is people can often use a small amount of those petroleum commercial-based lotions. But read your lotion labels. If there's ingredients in there that would be something that you would ingest, like apricot oil, wheat germ oil, avocado oil, something like that, you probably don't want to put it on your skin because it can go into your metabolism. And again, we're on such a really low fat restricted program here that even that small amount of fats can really throw people off. So be aware of that, and just be cautious with putting any lotions or oils on your skin. You can find some really good oil-free moisturizers out there. We often see people to Trader Joe's for this really good facial one. Let's see, there's also for hands, there's like Working Hands by O'Keeffe's, or Cornhuskers lotion, or there's a couple of oil-free moisturizers out there. And again, a small amount of the petroleum-based commercial lotions often seems to be okay. And then another good option is getting some of that MCT oil and using it topically. So putting a little bit on your skin right out of the shower can be really helpful for dry skin. And I mention this a lot because oftentimes people will complain of skin dryness when they're on the program because you're on such a fat restricted diet. So it becomes an issue a little bit for a lot of people. So be aware, and there's some options to do. And again, talk to us if you're having any questions that are popping up about this. You do also be careful with suntan lotions and oils. Again, nowadays most of them are moving to this commercial-based petroleum lotion basis, and they don't seem to be stalling people as much as the more healthier ones. So normally I suggest getting the nice organic, healthy, normal, natural lotions. But in this case, actually, the big commercial stuff that's not, I normally wouldn't recommend for this little window of time seems to work better. So take it for what it's worth. Dr. Simeon, in his book, generally discouraged massage because, again, they slather you up in so much oil and lotion when you get a massage. However, nowadays, you can get that MCT oil, which works fine topically. So we've had massage therapists do this program with us, and they just switched their whole practice to using MCT oil, and they're covered in it all day in their arms, and they still lost significant weight as much as everybody else. So take the MCT oil if you want to get a massage, and it seems to be fine. So, okay, so medications, really you probably want to talk to one of your doctors who's signing you up on this if you have questions about this. But if there's any medications that you only take as needed, I would try to limit them as much as possible in the program. Oftentimes people find their pain levels decrease pretty rapidly on this calorie restricted diet, and once you put the HCG on board, some clinics have started using HCG for pain because they're seeing that people seem to have decreases in their pain levels while they're taking HCG, which is kind of an interesting application. We've been playing around with a little bit with a few people and seeing some good results with it. So it's people noted for a long time that their pain often goes away when they get on this program, and I always thought it was just due to the clean, limited diet, and I think that is part of it. But I do think there is some element that HCG is doing something for pain directly. So you may not need as much pain medication, but you can use aspirin, ibuprofen if you need to. If you're on medications that you're prescribed that you have to take regularly, I probably wouldn't stop them. Although again, talk to your doctors. Sometimes we can lower the doses, and sometimes we have to lower the doses. If you're on any blood pressure medicines or blood sugar, diabetes medicines, really talk to your doctor about this because oftentimes if we don't decrease the doses, you can get too low of blood sugar or too low of blood pressure and start getting lightheaded. Once you go on this calorie restricted diet, these numbers really drop quickly into normal ranges, and often we can pull people significantly back on their medication doses or get them off completely. So if you're on blood pressure medicine or blood sugar or diabetes medicines, really talk to your doctor. We can come up with a strategy on timing, on monitoring and pulling back if needed. So be careful on those things. Okay, how long is the program? So there's basically kind of two options here. Dr. Simeon's in his book laid these two out. He described a 23-day program and a 40-day program. So he said if you had less than 15 pounds to lose, just do the 23-day protocol. And if you're doing that, he said that was the minimum length of time that he wanted people doing. He didn't want you going shorter than that. If you hit your goal weight before your 23 days, what you want to do is just probably increase the same foods, maybe double your protein, double your veggies, double your fruit portions until you get to that 23-day mark. The longest program you can do is 40 days, and that's if you have more than 15 pounds to lose. So we stop the program on the longer round once someone's lost 34 pounds or reached 40 injections, so whichever comes first. So if someone hits 34 early and they still have shots to go, we sometimes can bump that up to about 40, especially if someone has significant weight numbers to lose, like over 100 pounds. Then often they can lose a little more on the first round or two on that. So one difference between these two protocols is on the shorter protocol, you inject every single day. You go straight through 23 days. On the longer protocol, we inject 6 days a week on, and then we skip one day. So usually I have people pick one day of the week as their skip day. Often Saturday or Sunday works best, just so you remember. And just don't take a shot that day every week. Take shots on the other 6 days. But you do stay on that diet on that off day. So Dr. Simeon's felt that it prevented building up a tolerance to the medicine. I'm not exactly sure if that's true, but what I've seen is that it stretches the program out a little bit longer and allows people to hit a bigger weight loss number. It works just as well. So I would encourage you to follow what he did, and that's what we do in our practice here. So if you don't get to your goal weight in one round, you have to wait 6 weeks before doing another round. And what we do is we do 3 weeks of phase 3 and 3 weeks of phase 4, which we will talk about in a subsequent video. So if you need to do more rounds than 2, the gap gets a little longer each time. So between round 1 and 2, it's 6 weeks. Between round 2 and 3, it's 8 weeks. Between 3 and 4, it's 12 weeks. And then it gets a little longer even from that if you're going straight through doing rounds. Just so be aware of that. But if you've got significant numbers to lose, we can get that. If you follow this time frame, it allows your body to kind of recover between rounds, helps build back muscle mass, connective tissue. And I think what I've seen, people who have lost these big numbers, we don't see as much muscle, like skin sagging, as we do on some other rapid weight loss programs where people just lose quickly without stopping. So I think these gaps are important for getting your body back and moving into a healthier weight loss. There also may be some stalls and plateaus that happen when you're losing weight. You may not lose weight every single day. You may hit a few day point where you're not losing. So we will have a separate video for that. We have a handout in our notebook too. So read about that or watch the video if you're hitting a point where you're not losing. If it's a day or two, it's not usually a big deal. If we're getting into more than that, we can sometimes need to tweak something. There's a troubleshooting guide on what to do, some tips to try to break a stall. But again, talk to the doctor if you're having any questions about any of these things. Lastly, for women, there's a few things that are specific. One of the things that's kind of interesting is Dr. Simeon's recommended not taking any injections on days you're menstruating. What we see is people don't usually lose weight during their period. So we generally don't want to take waste the shots on those days. So what he said, the best time to start a round is right after your period, but you want to have at least 10 days before your next period, so you're doing really well, because what we do when you get your period is we pause the injections, but we stay on the low-calorie diet as long as you're having active bleeding. Once you get to a light spotting point in your period, then you can get back on the injections and go there. But stay on the diet through that. Generally, people can go across that time without too much problem and then get back on the shots. So if you start right after a period and you're doing the full 40-day approach, you usually only have to pause one time if your cycle is somewhat normal. If you're on birth control medications, which is something I may encourage, especially if there's some reports of people getting pregnant while on the program, because again, remember, HCG is used for fertility purposes, so there may be some increased fertility if you don't want to get pregnant. Use some precautions. But what I sometimes have people do with their birth control is not take their blank week and so go straight through, so you don't have to take this pause period. A lot of new birth control pills like Seasonal, Seasonique go through 90 days between cycles, so we can do that. You can use that kind of approach, or you can piggyback your birth control. But again, talk to your doctor about these options. These are some different things to do. The second women-specific issue is that with some cosmetics, you have to be careful. The main one I've seen problems with is the liquid-based concealers. They just have a lot of fats, and again, it's that whole fat kind of can stall people approach. So mineral makeups and powders generally are safer, so I would encourage people using that. Some optional things that can be helpful. Again, I think I mentioned most of these by now during this talk. One is that protein powder by Biogenesis. We can have it ordered and shipped to your home in a couple days. Again, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry, banana, and it can be a nice free food up to once a day for people on the program. That MCT oil I recommend picking up in the health food store. Again, medium chain triglyceride, but usually it's called MCT oil. And that's a nice option. It's a great cooking oil. It has basically hardly any flavor. It's kind of like a canola oil, so it tolerates really high heat too. So it's a good oil to use. I've often just switched to my family to using that over all other oils. The last one, if you're able to come into our office, I found that using these B12 shots paired with we usually put 3 things in it: B12, B complex, and in MIC, which is methionine, inositol, and choline, which are what we call lipotropic factors. These things all sort of help with energy, and they also help with your body processing through fat. So they can be really helpful for if you're getting any brain fog, fatigue, headaches. And so a lot of people will get them just every week when they come in once a week, get a shot, and it really seems to help people thrive better on the program. And in some cases, it seems to make people lose more weight. So just an option. There's ways we can send people home with some of these that you can self-administer, or we can administer them in office. So yeah, talk to your doctor if this is a good option for you. We usually have some packages going that include these as well. So, all right, so that's essentially everything you need to get started. Again, watch the video on how to accept the medicine and give yourself a shot once you get the medicine in. And again, we've just had, we're excited to see people do well on this, thrive, and lose the weight that they need. We've just seen over and over that people have success with this. And one of my favorite testimonies are people who come in and they say, I was coming in for just wanting to look better, getting ready for a wedding, summer season or whatever. But really, I feel like it's really changed my life. I have much more energy. I can exercise more. And my blood numbers are better, my cholesterol is better, my blood sugar is better, my blood pressure is better, I'm able to get off medicines. I just feel like I have so much more vitality. And so that's my hope for everyone who's looking into this, that they will achieve those benefits that are possible here. So again, we're here for you as a resource. Use us. If you have any issues, we've probably run into it before, someone having the same thing, and we probably have some tips to help you get through it. So we look forward to seeing you do well, and keep us informed. Let us know how you do so we can get some more great testimonies. All right, thank you.